So, we're going to spend the rest of the afternoon on the two parts of requirement 3. The first is the commercial analysis of an operational problem, and the second is ethics. Okay? So we're going to start our preparation for commercial analysis. And do you remember that in my AI preparation, I did a SWOT, PESTLE, and Porters. And on the AI, on the company, okay, not using anything outside the AI unless it's really obvious macro stuff for the cinema industry as a whole. And I do recommend, as part of your preparation, that you go and have a quick look at the Cinema Association website. I will expect you to have looked at it for next Saturday and to bring along, I don't know, 3 or 4 pertinent facts out of there that are not in the AI. He makes reference to the Cinema Association, so I think we should do him the honor of going and having a look and see if there's anything of interest that might be there that we can use. And that's the sort of thing we put into our wider issues. Okay, that's there. For SWOT, 4 quadrants, round about half a page each. Okay, something like that. For PESTLE, a little less. Just depends what's going on. Political, not very much. But economic, obviously, quite a lot. Social, etc. So the quadrants aren't, or the 6 elements aren't as evenly balanced. And then the final bit, which I think is so that's just using the information that's in the AI and rearranging it in different ways. But the original thought comes in the 5 forces work. And that's what we're going to focus on for the next hour and a half, something like that, including a tea break. Okay, that's what we're going to do. So, in your table groups, let's start us off. Could I have Porter's 5 forces, please? In your table groups? Thank you. Ready to go? Megan, take us through 5 forces.
Literally, we've got through 1 at the moment. We were going into depth, I think. We've started with supplier power.
No.
Oh, sorry, what did you?
You're answering the question that you want to answer. This is being very instructive. So now you're going to have to bluff your way out of this one. Okay, with some help from your friends, maybe a little cross-pollination of ideas, from the other tables. So, table group here, as a generality, rack your brains. 5 Porter's 5 forces, please. Start us off.
Supplier bargaining power.
Who's bargaining power?
Supplier.
Supplier. Right, let's keep it simple. Who else is bargaining power?
Customers.
Excellent. Next.
Competitive rivalry.
Competitive rivalry. Yep.
Substitute.
When you say substitutes, what? Threat of substitutes. And finally?
Barriers to entry.
No, not quite.
Threats of new entrants.
Threats of new entrants, but barriers to entry is part of the discussion. Yeah. Okay, thank you very much. And so that we're the same hymn sheet before we start to do some work on Porter's Five Forces, can we just make sure we define? So who are the suppliers or supplier groups that we're talking about? Who are the customers or customer groups? Who are the competition? Who might be the what might be the substitutes? And who might be the new entrants? So we get the discussion focused. Okay, so just in your table groups, can you put some definitions in? You might have more than one in each of the categories. That doesn't matter. Just trying to get a feel for what's going on. Let's start off then. Marcus. Start us off then. You may start, no, I'm going to start you, with suppliers. Who are their suppliers?
So the distributors.
So we've got distributors. How many?
4.
4 distributors. Yep. Who else?
They're, I couldn't have to tell it, basically their property agent, who they rent the building from.
Taylor Stone.
Yeah.
Anybody else?
I've put who they advertise with.
You've put what?
Who they advertise with, so local newspapers, anything like that.
Yeah. Let's just look at the advertising in total, because you've also got the people that the two companies that provide them with the advertisements, which is a bit of an odd relationship because they pay us money, but clearly we've got a sort of supply relationship, because if they don't supply us with ads, then we aren't going to get any fees. So I think we've got the whole advertising part. Okay, so we've got the outgoing adverts and the incoming to deal with there. Okay, so I'm just going to put that times 2. And I don't mean the 2 agents, I mean the both directions. Okay, to think about there. Yep, great, thank you very much. Flicking over to here. And Sam, take us through our customers. Who are our customers?
So we've got Jewel in the food and drink, and also people coming to watch films.
Is Jewel a customer? I know they pay us money. Isn't it a bit like the advertising syndicates? They're a supplier, and it's a funny relationship, isn't it? Because we're getting money from them, but we don't provide them with anything.
Yeah.
It's slightly odd. So let's just hold that and recognise the oddity of it. Okay, so we've got Jewel. And I'm just going to put a little question mark just to remind us that it's slightly weird, that relationship. Yep.
The people coming to watch films.
Okay, and we've got some groupings there, haven't we?
So was it over 55 students?
Sorry, we've got
Students.
Yeah. 55 plus.
Yeah. There's one more.
Families and kids.
Families with young children.
Families. And sort of the, sorry?
Young professionals.
Young professionals. I'm going to call them YPs. Okay, and presumably somewhere in there you've got just ordinary punters as well. Normal people, all that lot. Okay, good. And moving on over here. William?
Well, we competitive work.
Yeah, so who are our competitors?
Multiplexes.
So we've got multiplexes. Shh. Yeah,
Other independents.
other independents. Anybody else?
Well, it's kind of either competition or substitution, but like internet streaming.
I would call, let's call that substitution, I think. I think those are our two main competitors. Yeah, great. That brings us on very quickly to substitutions, and we already have streaming. What other substitutions?
Live events.
Yeah,
Sports and other leisure activities.
other leisure. In this streaming, can I just have other viewing platforms? Okay, let's broaden that out to other viewing platforms. Yeah, great. And finally, potential new entrants, please. Safar, fine.
License?
Sorry?
License? They need a license to, operate, isn't
No, no. Who might be other new entrants into the market?
Other independent cinemas.
Yeah?
The online streaming and other platforms.
I think that's more a substitute. Who's likely to be opening a cinema right on our doorstep? That's really what I think is meant by new entrants.
Multiplex.
So it could be a multiplex comes to town. Who else? Anybody? Any other ideas for new entrants?
We said maybe a new restaurant as well. Might take business away.
Oh, okay. I like that. Yep.
We put that for competitive rivalry as well.
It doesn't.
Yeah, that makes sense.
That's fine. Yeah, let's put that up here. Competitive rivalry, restaurants. What's another competitive rivalry for the sweets and refreshments kiosk is? What cheapskates like I do? Bring my own. Yeah. Sorry, what's all that laughter? I'm not sure I'm happy about that. Right, okay, restaurants, and let's just think about that. So bring your own. BYO. Down here, new entrants. Who might be getting into the cinema market, just coming out of left field, nowhere? Not in it yet, but look at the 8% growth and go, yeah, I'm going to have a bit of that. Could be. I'm thinking just other leisure groups. Just this is a new, starting off on a new. I mean, I don't know. There's not a right answer to this, but I just wonder. So that this is quite closed, and maybe there's a potential threat coming from that we don't even see coming in. So other leisure. Now by that I don't mean the same as other leisure as a substitute. So that's a different activity. This is other leisure groups starting down, opening up a new revenue stream of cinemas. And they might have some serious purchasing power and cash to spend. Okay. So that's given you a bit of a start. And so you can't just deal with each of these 5 forces necessarily in a homogeneous way. There might be different responses and different risks depending on which subsection you're dealing with. So you need to look at each of the subsections, although you might have the same responses, so you can merge them together for dealing with particular aspects of your responses and mitigation. So what I want you to do is to assess whether the bargaining powers, the competition, and the threats are high, medium, or low. And then what is Sequin going to look to do to protect itself from the threats, to mitigate the competitive rivalry, and to diffuse the bargaining powers. Okay, that's the job for this afternoon. So, table group over there, I'd like you to do suppliers. You're going to see some order in this. Customers, competitive rivalry, substitutes, new entrants, and now I've run out of groups. What would you like to do? Choose amongst yourselves. Choose amongst yourselves. I will come back and seek what you're going to do. Find out what you're going to do. So, you're going to do some brainstorming. I'm going to give you a sheet of flip chart paper. You're going to set it out on a flip chart. You're going to put it up on the wall. You're going to appoint a spokesperson, and they are going to present to the rest of the class. Okay? In a confident and assertive manner, with no ups at the end of the sentences, in case I'm not sure. Okay? So that's the job to do, and you're going to have 25 minutes to do your preparation. We'll have a break for tea, and then we'll take some feedback. Okay? And I'll just be circulating around the room to help out. Okay, good to go. Thank you. Right, what you going to do? Substitute. You have a nominated spokesperson. Okay. What I'd like is the spokesperson to come up to whichever flip chart is yours, and then just talk to the room. Okay, and just tell us the risk or the amount of power, high, medium, low, and high, medium, low, and then how Sequin are going to either mitigate the risk or manage or dilute the power or the rivalry. Okay, so let's just be boring and start at this end. And start with competitive rivalry. So who's doing competitive rivalry? Okay. Thanks. Off you go, Kira.
Okay, so we were looking at competitive rivalry, and there were three main competitors that we identified. The first was the multiplexes, the second being other independents, and then the third one being others such as bring your own food and restaurants. So multiplexes, there are three main risks we identified. The first one being that multiplexes showed the major blockbusters on release. This would attract a large portion of customers, particularly occasional customers and new customers, which would reduce our ability to attract new customers into our own cinema. In order to mitigate this, we'd look to show some of the big events on release in the hope of attracting some of these occasional customers to Sequin as opposed to the multiplexes. The multiplexes offer more flexibility on timings and options of films. For Sequin, in order to mitigate this, we need to ensure the quality of service and a focus on specific demographics that we've identified, being the over 55s, students, and families, and young professionals. Finally, the big three multiplexes have a bigger marketing budget and therefore a bigger presence online. Once again, we need to look at focusing on the markets locally and towards our specific identified target audiences. So the other independents, the risk is that they offer lower price films, attracting our customers away. In order to mitigate this, we need to look at carrying out market research on the competitor's price and ensure that our pricing is competitive. And also, other independents may have better locations within the towns. So therefore, when we look to open new cinemas, we need to look for good locations with good accessible local transport, i.e. buses. Finally, the other risks we've identified are customers bringing their own food and confectionery and therefore not purchasing when they visit Sequin. We did come up with searching customers' bags, but this wasn't necessarily seen as viable. So we just looked to ensure we price the sweets are priced competitively and a high quality of product is available to enhance the viewer experience. And then finally, there are maybe other restaurants in the area attracting Jules customers. And again, we just look to ensure that there's a high quality of food and service as well as an ambience that's going to attract customers.
Excellent. Thank you very much indeed. Just some thoughts on that, and please anybody chip in if you've got some thoughts as well. These are, we're going to take pictures of these, they'll be posted up on the resources pages, and you can use them to start your own work and then develop them. And we're going to come back to them at the end of the programme to make sure that they are fully up to scratch. My thoughts on this, the multiplex, so we're going to show the big events releases. Was this, Kieran, effectively going head to head?
I think that was our plan, show the occasional one head to head.
Just occasional? Okay. Just to show that we're not completely left field or whatever. Yeah. Okay. Okay. And we've ensured the quality of the service and the focus on the specific demographics. What else could we do that's different from multiplexes? We could do the festivals, which also would be against other independents as well. So some of them, these might be common themes. We've got festivals. So I'm just thinking about other service offerings. We've got festivals. Anything else? Just think about cinemas. Does anybody have local independents near you? Or smaller cinema, non-multiplex? Yeah?
Sometimes they have a bar, you can get drinks or food like delivered to your seat.
Whoa. Okay, so that's just down on the food down here. So seat service. I'm thinking more in terms of the film offering. What could they do? What could you do differently? Sorry?
More educational films.
What, really boring stuff?
Or targeting, I guess, local schools and things like
Okay, so we could do some link ups. So we could do educational. And I think one of the things they talk about is sort of specific genres of films. You know, just a bit, something that's a bit different from the multiplex. Older films is another thing. So I think one of your competitive things would be competitive tools is to be more flexible in terms of the mixing up the service offering. Just really looking at that. What is the take-up of different languages in this country? I know, possibly, yeah, foreign, possibly. You could pick, but you could, sorry? In Grimsby, or Hull. Yes. Have we got an anti-northern bias here? Hello, everybody. How do you know I'm not from Hull myself, or Grimsby?
You may very well be, but I know.
But
I know the general kind of population there.
yeah,
It's mostly white British.
right. Okay. So Anglo-Saxon, yeah. So, but thinking of the service offering, I think you could do themed events. So a bit like the festivals, but say after the Cannes Festival or after the British Film Festival in London, that sort of thing. You could do themed stuff. I definitely think there's opportunity for there. Okay. So against other independents, again, we've got the market research on competitors, Sequin's pricing competitive, good location, accessibility. And then I think, again, you've got to differentiate your service. You've got to make it somehow, because you're now going head-to-head with these people. And I really think you've got to look at that. Two things always in business, or actually three, but two to start with. Number one, how does anybody know you're here? Number two, once they know you're here, why should they choose you? Third one is once they've chosen you, don't lose them. Very basics in business. And the number of businesses that fall down on 2 and 3. Okay? Just don't set out clearly, why should I come to your cinema rather than somebody else's round the corner? And having come, is the experience really good? I go, great, I'm going to come back here. Or I go, doesn't really matter. Okay, so looking at that, bag searches. I like that. That's a bit of a customer put-off thing, but I like it anyway. In-seat surface, competitive price, high quality, enhanced experience. Now we're getting to it. Enhanced experience. Something different, quality of food, blah, blah. Great stuff. Thank you very much indeed. So moving on to, we must be, over 55s must be customers. Who's doing customers? Said? Off you go. Great.
So this was a tough one for us because we could have gone low or high, either way in terms of bargaining power. So we had 4 different kind of customer demographics. One is over 55s. The other one is students and young professionals. We kind of compartmentalize them together. Families and kids. So that's one other one. And Jewel, we said, because there was a mix between Jewel being a customer and a supplier in some senses. So we kept them there. So in terms of over 55s, we said their bargaining power was, generally talking about price, bargaining power is high in terms of the full customer base, because you see that prices are quite competitive given your other rivals and things like that as well. So we thought that the customers had a high influence of what the price might be. With over 55, we said it's high because it's, in the AI it mentions that they're a larger audience group in recent years, so there's a high dependency for revenue coming from over 55s. Secondly, they have a high disposable income, but at the same time, they're also, they care about value for money a lot as well. So I guess in terms of keeping them, we need to be conscious about whether they're getting value for money, and it kind of ties in with all the service offerings that we have and bringing those in. Also, more in particular to over 55s, they have a specific need for what kind of movies they want. So the AI mentions that they like movies with deeper characters and deeper storyline. So offering those kinds of movies will attract over 55 kind of demographic to Sequin.
Or like Star Wars. Something deep and moving.
Of course.
Or Bourne, which I really like, and I'm definitely over 55. I get your point.
We don't want to generalize. So moving on to students and young professionals, again, we said high bargaining power, but also generalizing compared to the over 55s, they're more likely to use substitutes. So they might not want to go to the cinema if the price kind of doesn't match, especially because they'll have less disposable income and are more likely to move across to substitute instead. So for them, we said that Sequin should offer more kind of student discounts and bring them in through that. Again, for competitive rivalry, students and young professionals might just be interested in more blockbuster type movies. So you want that kind of variety of offerings that would bring the students and young professionals into the cinema. With families and kids, again, high more because if you bring in families and kids are coming in, then you get more customers at once. So instead of getting a couple of people, you might get the whole family involved. So that's quite useful. The other thing is that they could fill up the kind of weekdays and morning slots, which young professionals or people who are working, they might not be able to come in.
Well,
So
the students definitely could fill the morning slots.
yes,
If they're up at all.
Yeah. So we thought that's why they probably have more bargaining power. The other thing is that they can also bring in revenue with the food and drink, so they're more likely to go to the restaurant as well. So for them, we thought kind of targeted advertising to bring them in, and targeted films towards children. So having that, again, a diverse range of films that you offer. The other thing is, I suppose, being accommodating towards timing. So if there's school holidays or school breaks, you might want to be more focused on this kind of demographic. And the other thing is that kids areas and kids corners. So something that's geared towards that kind of demographic, so that there's areas where they can hang out and enjoy themselves. So that's something that Sequin can do to bolster that kind of demographic. So other than that, so Jewel, so there's a medium bargaining power, we said, because there's a interdependency for Jewel to be able to make money and also for Sequin to make money as well. So the reason why it's medium is because there's an existing relationship also. So both depend on each other for revenue. And in terms of that, either party might not want to cause all the disruption for actually moving away from their contract and bringing in somebody new. There's a huge risk that somebody who comes in as a restaurant might not be able to deliver the same services. And also there's a risk if you take it in-house, then the cost and administrative burden might be too high, which per Sequin's previous experience has been the case. The other thing is that Sequin does need Jewel to maintain a positive operating profit. So there's for Sequin there's a huge dependency for that revenue stream to keep coming in, so that they can make a decent operating profit. So in summary.
Excellent.
Thanks.
Thank you very much indeed. That's great. Can we just think about the students and young professionals? You've bracketed this together, but I don't think in the AI at present they are bracketed together. I think they're considering whether the students should be a fourth targeted group. I think that's not quite there. So just be careful with it. You'll definitely have to look at it as one of the strategic initiatives. So picking it up there. I also think that the gross generalization, but there are a couple of quite key differences between those two customer groups. One clearly is earnings and money, okay, and the other is available time, okay. Young professionals, one would assume, are in pretty demanding jobs and looking to move themselves forward. So maybe their availability to go to the cinema just isn't that much. Whereas again, students and perhaps having a different genre of film that they want to watch, and it could be different within the student population as well. And you could definitely link that up with the local colleges or whatever, just do something like that. One of the things I would do in looking at these is just considering if you've got a limited number of screens, you know, how are you going to mix and match the showings, the films that you're going to show, and the timings. And you won't necessarily, because I think I'm right in saying is that the films are shown, the same films are shown across all 4 cinemas. But so that actually limits your scope for mixing this up to deal with your local demographics. And maybe that's something, again, thinking fast forwarding, conclusion, recommendation, is they need to be a bit more flexible. But of course, when you use your flexibility, you lose some of your bargaining power because you lose that mass. And then you've got splintering off all over the place. Okay. Definitely focusing on the school holidays here and sorting that out. So I think you've got quite a range of different things here. The over 55s, which I view as grossly disrespectful, okay, since clearly I am just about to have my 40th birthday, okay, clearly. There's a very interesting debate going on now about the lumping of 55, 60, 65, whatever the number is, as a homogeneous group. And trust me, we are not. Okay? So one of my mates, his work activity, 5 days a week, full on solid, is the golf course. He doesn't play golf at the weekend because then he wouldn't have anything to do during the week. At the weekend, he goes fishing or whatever he does. And there's me, flat out, new business ideas the whole time, this, that, So we're just like poles apart. So I think you have to be very careful. And again, just not for us in the case, but just thinking when we're making the recommendations, just be careful of overgeneralizations. But that's great. Thank you very much. Group down here took issue with me, and I think correctly, over the advertising with the suppliers and the customers. Because I said that I thought that the advertising the sales, that was almost a supplier relationship. And Marcus, you corrected me or gave me your thoughts on that. So do you want to just take us through your analysis of, have you got it on your?
We kind of tagged it on the end. It is on there.
It is on there, but do you want to just take us through it? Because I think this is really interesting because it's a bit, I think there is a bit of a similarity with Joule, but nothing like as clear cut, and I've been persuaded by Marcus's argument, so on you go.
So with the 2 advertisers, the first indicator I looked at was which way the money was flowing, and it was flowing it into Sequin. So that was the first thing that made me think they were a customer. But ultimately, Sequin, I think, is selling advertising space to those 2 customers, and they are therefore a customer.
So in terms of that, what is the process? We went through an imaginary conversation between Sequin and Transcreen or Vixen or whoever.
So I think Sequin would be possibly have someone, it doesn't say so in the AI, but I think reality would have someone in charge of attracting that revenue, and would be going out saying, hey, come and advertise in our cinema instead of this newspaper or wherever else, this billboard. Look how many people you will see these adverts, and we'll charge you X for it. Okay, so you've convinced me that the advertising agencies are a customer. What is the bargaining power, and how will Sequin seek to diffuse that power or manage that power? First of all, what do you think the bargaining power is? High, medium, or low? We didn't really get that far because we're doing.
Well, let's do it. Let's just do it on the hoof.
We're doing suppliers. I would say, as a customer, probably medium.
Right.
So I think Sequin are the only cinema locally who can provide cinema advertising, but they're by no means the only place that adverts can be put.
So if they're going to come to Grimsby or Hull or whatever, they would come to Sequin. Do we think that Sequin cinemas are the only cinemas in town? Have we got any reason to believe that? I don't know.
I don't know, but I wouldn't have thought we'd have that many small independents surviving in one town.
Okay. But they're going to be up against, in terms of competition, they're going to be up against, this is the competitive rivalry bit, isn't it? Up against other cinema space offerers.
Yeah, I think Sequin can offer us kind of quite a niche marketing opportunity.
Right.
But they've got to compete with billboards, any other leisure activities locally, newspapers.
Okay, so we're saying it's the bargaining power is medium, and how are we going to manage that power?
I think they need to be in touch with more advertisers.
Okay, so one of the problems is there's just not enough
only having
diversification.
Two people, buying advertising space off you.
Right, and that's a very obvious point in the AI. Often on the supply side, they're limited. They only have sometimes just single suppliers, but often limited. And they're looking, one of the aspects of the discussion in requirement 2 and requirement 3 is diversification, to spread your risk. That's a common theme that crops up over and over again. Great stuff, thank you very much, that's great. Right, moving on then. So here I've got the other suppliers. So who was dealing with the other suppliers?
Okay, I'll have a chat.
Thank you very much, Steve. That's great. Just there, it's good.
So first I'll start with the distributors. At the moment we have 4, and there's a high risk because they can set the prices to whatever they want. The distributors seem to be the ones which provide the mainstream films, for instance. So if we want the clientele, then we're a little bit limited as to which distributors we use. And also we're quite small in size, so we're unable to use the bargaining power to get the lower costs that we want to pay. But we can mitigate that by maybe joining a consortium or by expanding and creating more cinemas like we're planning to anyway. So I guess that's most of that. Then there's also Taylor Stone, which we work closely with to set up new cinemas. At the moment they're our sole supplier, so that's quite high to medium risk. But we have been working with them for quite a while now, so there's a chance that maybe we could do the work ourselves. And we do the market research to find out whether it's going to work, and we obviously turned down one quite recently, so maybe that's something we could consider ourselves. But we've got a long-standing relationship with them, and that's working quite well at the moment, so it's something we'd want to monitor going forwards. But we could also seek other alternatives, maybe through working in a consortium. We could use the suppliers they use to set up new cinemas too. So that's that there. The advertising, I guess there's a bit of debate as to whether they're the supplier or not.
We'll move on from the 2 advertising distribution people. So now it's where we place our advertisements.
Okay, so looking at the adverts we place, I think that's low risk. There's plenty of opportunities to advertise in radios, on the radio, or billboards, or wherever we like. Really, there's lots of opportunities there. So they haven't really specified that we just use one vendor. So I don't think that's so much a risk. But we can always look for other options there. I don't think we had too much else on that. But yeah, I don't think it's high risk.
Okay, thank you very much, Steve. That's great. All right, so I think there is quite a vulnerability with the distributors. As you say, they hold the keys. Now, clearly, they want the film to be a success, so they can't make the distribution fees ridiculous, because the film, if they end up bankrupting the cinemas because they charge too much, then that nobody wins. but I agree on the on the incremental increases up and down. That's quite difficult. And at the moment, with just the 4 cinemas, we must have negligible bargaining power. So some sort of purchasing consortium, mixing it up, trying to work, trying to maybe not necessarily taking the films in their absolutely first, the first couple of peak weeks, but let it go through. I mean, I lived for a while up in Derbyshire, and the town there had a small independent cinema, just a single cinema. And, you could go to Derby if you wanted to see, dare I say it, Star Wars or Bourne, on the release date. But it came through a few weeks later or whatever, so you could do that. And it was really nice. I mean, I walked to the cinema. There were nice, comfy seats. It had really good bar and restaurant. And it was a great, and everybody knew each other. We used to go. So it was a really nice convivial night out. And for the sake of a couple of weeks, that was a great job. So that might be one way of doing it. And then of course you get the lower fees as well. And the other is going for just not the mainstream films. And I think one of the distributor has the lower rates anyway. So you could just flex that a little bit and try that. But I think that's quite tricky. Taylor Stone is a real conundrum. Sole supplier. I was talking with somebody earlier on, I can't remember, about these leases coming up for renewal, and we've got the lease in August 18, and what is going to happen if for some reason Taylor Stone get the hump and start not renewing the lease, not renewing the leases, or really jacking up the rents, because we've got our cinema expansion program, and suddenly instead of that incremental income, you've got a big drop as the first one, Leicester, drops off the end, and suddenly you're in quite big trouble. So you're definitely going to need a plan B for this. Okay, and diversification of supply might be one, but as you said, we've got a really good relationship with them. So are we going to muck that up? How are we going to do it? I think it's a very tricky business problem. And that definitely needs some thought over the next few weeks so that we've got some good quality, persuasive arguments to put. And that means that our recommendations are going to be practical, commercial, and not completely theoretical and off the wall. Okay? So I think, although there's actually only really two things, I think the hard copy distribution, advertising is a bit of a non-point. So I agree with you on that. But I think these two are quite difficult, and they're going to need some thought about that. Excellent. Thank you very much indeed. Going over here now, and what are we doing? Threats of substitutes. Great, thank you.
So we put the main threats of substitutes as streaming online, which I think is a high threat. Other leisure activities, so things like bowling or something like that, that's a high threat. And then live events more as a low threat. I think because of the price, maybe so we're talking here like concerts and things like that. Price and how frequently you go there. So to mitigate these risks, I think one of the main things is reducing the prices, as that seems to be something that puts off people going to the cinema a fair bit. Doing offers and promotions, so things like Tooth for Tuesday, I think it was, on Orange, to get people to go on potentially the days that weren't as popular, so not at the weekend but midweek. Enhancing the experience, so things like comfy chairs with bringing food, drinks, your seats and things like that, to make going to the cinema like a real day trip and, well, not a night trip, and a good experience. Loyalty cards, so that's sort of, if you go 5 times you get the 6th free or something like that, to try and prevent you coming back to the cinema once they've drawn you in. Putting on some niche films that aren't available online, so I think because Netflix has got a load of films and documentaries and things like that, so potentially putting on some of the less well-known films, or 3D, 4D is something that not many people have access to at home, so that could be quite a unique experience. The other one was utilising the restaurant, so trying to make, instead of people going to another restaurant and then coming to the cinema, maybe offering, say, if you eat in a restaurant you get a 10% discount on your ticket price, given that we get some revenue from the restaurant as it is. Targeting certain groups at certain times, so that's sort of, say, the over 55s or over 70s.
Thank you.
Not wanting to go when the teenagers are there. So maybe putting.
I love the stereotyping that's going on. Also, I'm clearly old and a bit frail because I want a safe night out, whatever that means. You know, I think Harvey got a bit carried away with that.
Yeah, so trying to entice them to go maybe on like a.
What, from a cup of tea?
Well,
from
yeah,
an afternoon matinee?
Tuesday night to meet some new people.
I'm there, trust me.
And then finally, sort of deals with other businesses within the town. So potentially, if you come to the cinema and then you get 5% off at another shop in the centre of Grimsby or wherever.
Yeah, great, Sam. Thank you very much indeed. Let's just have a look at just a couple of the differences here. So, streaming. Where are you going to be when you watch streamed?
So I think a lot of time home. So
Lots of time. This is home. Okay. So this is home. And what are the pros and cons of watching something streamed at home?
It's easy.
Easy.
Easy travel, cheaper. Yeah.
Easy, cheap.
Less time consuming.
In what way?
You don't need to travel to the.
Yeah. Okay. So quick. Anything else?
Multiple options.
Sorry?
Multiple options.
Multiple options, yeah. A choice. What else? Comfortable.
Stay in pyjamas and watch.
Watch out. Trying to think of what. Comfortable, I'll put comfortable. I was thinking of another word. What was another thing I was thinking of? Convenience. Yeah, that's what I was wanting. Wow. That's a pretty formidable set of competitive advantages for home. So, why do cinemas? Why are they even still going?
Experience.
Okay.
Large screens.
So, talk to me about this large screen. My telly is massive. Not only am I over 55, but I've got a huge screen. Right, so the experience, whatever that means. The large screen, whatever that means. Okay, what else?
Films, they don't come out like
Immediacy.
mainstream films.
Yeah. More social.
Because you go to cinema.
Are you calling me a sad git who just sits at home on my own with my dog on my lap watching Bourne on my own? Not that I'm obsessed by Bourne, just by the way.
So you're more likely to go to the cinema with your friends. You don't.
I don't have any friends. I'm joshing. Social. Yeah. So let's make it this, and that feeds back into the experience. Let's make it into something. And you've got the restaurant, you've got this, and you've got that, and you can make it a night out. And even saddos like me need a night out every so often. Yeah, just every so often. Okay. As long as it's safe. That's all I want to do. Great. So think about, and then you can take that idea, other leisure. I agree, live events, pretty expensive, difficult to get tickets for, blah, 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 etc., etc. Okay? So, and those are maybe, this is like sort of a special occasion. Okay? Whereas these are, this is everyday, easy. And then cinema is somewhere in the middle. Something like that. But you need to get your differentiation in there. So just have a little think about other leisure. What niches are they going to fill, and what's our niche that we're going to generate for cinemas? Okay, great. And finally, I must have new entrants. So some new entrants. Who's doing that? Yes? Off you go, Paul.
Okay, so we did threat of new entrants. We said overall it was medium. And there were 4 new entrants, I think. So multiplexes, new independents, restaurants, and other leisure. Other leisure being kind of other leisure facilities. Maybe something like a Westfield as well. Something like that, where they've got lots of stuff and draw people in. So multiplexes, the large cinemas, the problem with them for us is they have a recognised brand. So someone like View, Odeon, they might bring people in who already have a familiarity with them. They more than likely, although we're not 100% sure, have more funding, so they probably have a bigger reserve of cash that can set up something easier, or at least probably get funding from the bank a lot easier. And also will show blockbusters earlier, because they can probably put up with the 50% fees and stuff like that, where the independents can't. So we classified them as quite a high risk actually, because they can do what they want, like come in and dominate. And probably also draw people away because they're offering more. So then we've got the new independent, so someone similar to Sequin, is that who they're called? Yeah, Sequin, I should know that. So Quantum's opening up in Nottingham as an example. So there's a bit of a dispute there with the local council to try and see if they can do that. High opening costs kind of keep them away as well. So the problem with the independents is that they don't necessarily have the same cash as some of the multiplexes. Also finding an appropriate location, that's one of the things, Sequin, that's one of the things they struggle with, so they've just turned something away from Taylor Stone. And also they might offer a different film mix and things like that, so that's another threat to them. We classify them as medium because they're probably harder to penetrate the market because of the high startup costs and the funding required. Then restaurants, lower down because that's not really our main area of expertise, but fast food could be a threat because they're probably easy to set up, but equally could draw people into the cinema. If there's maybe a restaurant near the cinema, that could draw in people to the cinema. Good pricing in local chain, I'm not sure what that means. I think that means, yeah, if there's a good pricing and they could compete with the restaurant, and then we do lose that 10-20% margin. But we've classified that as low. And then other leisure, medium. So again, it depends what that other leisure would be. So if it is something like a Westfield, you're probably willing to draw someone away from the cinema, as in from that area. They're probably willing to drive 5-10 miles because they can spend half a day there, a whole day there. They're going shopping, and bowling and other stuff like that. And then to mitigate the risks, we were thinking offering different films, but again, there's the problem of what can we actually obtain with the fees and everything. Loyalty cards, ticket prices being more competitive, but there's only so much we can kind of buffer with the pricing. Market research, so make sure we get good locations where other people kind of not want to compete with us. And with Quantum, kind of complain to the local authority and just say it's not fair. Like, don't do this.
It's not fair.
Exactly, yeah.
Poor dears. Yeah. Great. Thank you very much, Paul. That's great. Couple of thoughts. These restaurants, low risk. Go back to this morning. What is the impact of our food and drink revenue on profitability?
See, we were debating this because...
Right.
Yeah, so we're having a bit of debate.
But you were just waiting to see if I'd spotted it as well to raise the issue. Yeah. Okay.
Exactly.
Good.
Well, we were debating it because we weren't sure if that was, as in, we know it's a threat, but as in, we weren't sure if that's what was meant to go on the quantified forces. As in,
Oh, so it's just too detailed.
Pretty much,
Yeah,
There's
so
only so much space.
could I just focus on the big issues instead of getting into all the detail?
Well, yeah.
Well, I think it's an interesting dynamic
Yeah.
and dimension of the whole thing. So what I'm only putting it there is that in a generality, that could be low risk. But because of the particular threat that it poses to Sequin, maybe it's going to be a little bit higher. So it might be intrinsically lower risk, but the impact of even that low risk could be quite significant. That's the only point that I'm trying to make there. So it's just to be included in the discussion, in the debate. Okay? So I just put here question mark impact on PBT. And this other leisure, by that, it wasn't other leisure as a substitute. It was other leisure companies getting into films. Now, I think your Westfield point, or big retail complexes, is a very good point. So can I just change that slightly? Okay, so this is offer of the retail experience. And certainly, you know, in Derby, there was a big Westfield, and it had all of that, and then it had a 7-screen cinema, plus all the restaurants, all the bits, you know, and it sucked stuff away from the local independent. From the local independents in Derby, the little town that I lived in was half an hour north. It was just far enough. So we would go if we wanted a big blockbuster, but we would stay local if we preferred that. So again, your market differentiation and identifying your niche and then protecting your niche ferociously by the quality of your service offering is the way forward in this market. Great. I know some of you haven't spoken, but thank you all very much for your work. We've got another set of ideas on threats of substitutes. You'll get all of this, and you will also, there'll be another group starting in 2 weeks' time, and you'll get theirs as well, and then put it all together and do best of the best for the final weekend. Okay, so that's the start of your strategic analysis. And it's unlikely that you will use Porter's 5 forces in that mode for answering a question. But what you're going to do is draw ideas together. And the way that you're going to draw the ideas together, if you can go to your preparation instructions, is on the last page, there is a pro forma planning sheet. And what it is what I want you to do is, once you've done your SWOT, PESTLE, and Porters, is to prepare a pro forma planning sheet for each of these 8 possible initiatives. So 7 of them come straight out of the AI, and it's out of the document, which is Exhibit 13 and page 37. Strategic initiatives currently being explored includes those set out below. Thank you, Harvey. He's given us the work that we've got to do. There's one that I've not included in this list, which is the advertising, building better links with regional radio stations, blah, blah, blah. I don't see that as a particularly strategic initiative. It's just another form of advertising and marketing. So I've taken that off the list, and then added to the list is new cinema. Hasn't put that here, but clearly they're going to open new cinema. They've got to do that. That's what they've got to do. That's how they're going to keep growing. So you need to prepare one of these sheets for your requirement 2 discussion of benefits and risks operational and strategic issues for opening a new cinema. Okay? So, the way that this works, those are listed on the bottom of page 2. So you've got those listed there. And what I want you to do is identify financial, operational, and strategic benefits. And then why is that benefit or risk important? Why are we even talking about it in the context of Sequin? So that's the second column. And then the third column is going through your SWOT Porter's pestle and identifying, this is now the evaluation. So it's developing. And imagine you're writing a 3-sentence paragraph. The first sentence is setting out what the benefit is and why it's important. And the second sentence is then either linking it to another reason why it's important. So that's linking in terms of your evaluation. Or then it goes on to answer the question, so what? So the one question that turns up the whole time is why? But then every so often, during your answer, you're then going to develop your argument a little bit further and answer the question, so what? What does it mean for Sequin going forwards? You're going to do this as your home study work over the next week, and on next Saturday, we will then be coming together. You're going to be sharing for one of these projects, sharing your input and doing a sheet exactly like this. Well, it'll be exactly like this. I'll have these printed up at poster size, completing it so that then we have a set of these sheets across the whole class. Okay? Okay? So that's the job in hand, to do that. This requires a bit of work because you're pulling together all the streams of information, and this is how you're going to use your SWOT pestle porters. Not in these sheets like this, but in developing your arguments as to why this initiative is good news or bad news, or a good idea or a bad idea for Sequin. Okay. Yeah, Paul.
So in the exam, let's say we prepared data feeds, as in on this using the SWOT person.
Yeah.
Would you go and say a pre-filled out and then say, oh, look, new cinemas come out, just pull that one out and start filling in the rest of it?
Right. This, by definition, is a good starting point, but it's too general. So what you would do, new cinema, is you're sitting there, clock is ticking, and you have memory blank. And you go, bloody hell, I can't remember anything. And you go, oh yes I can, because I've got some ideas to start me off. And you take this and apply it to the specific facts of whatever's in the exam paper. So this is your starting point. These are your starting. Whereas these are great preparatory work, but not very useful starting points.
So you would have a kind of half filled out.
You'd have a fully filled out one of those. Fully filled out one of those, okay, as a starting point for ideas to talk about. But 2 or 3 of them may not be relevant. But then there might be something else in the exam paper that is like right on message. And one of the exercises that we need to do is going through exam paper exhibits and identifying the points that you're going to flip into your answer. Okay? Because around about half the points on the key come from the exam paper. And that makes sure that your answer is specific and precise. If we can think of it now, it's almost by definition too general. But what we can do is take this idea and apply it. So this is like an ideas bank, right? But in more user-friendly form than this stuff. Okay?